Hi, this is Blake Anderson. I am responding to Emily's message on Chapter 1 of Alan Combs' book, Consciousness Explained Better. I enjoyed your discussion, Emily. I liked how you mentioned the history that Watts went through. Um, I also enjoyed how you mentioned what Whitehead said about the misplaced concreteness. So I'll talk about that. But basically, I just wanted to start with what Watts I found in the introduction used to explain consciousness, and I think it's just a teaser of what perhaps we can expect. So he says, let me put it this way: consciousness is the background or simply the ground of all experience. So it seems like he said basically that in the chapter 1, but he was using more of I guess the way of negating the definition by making it not into a subject, or sorry, not making it into an object. So like I mentioned before, he uses Whitehead, and he says that philosopher Alfred Whitehead called the mistake of making a process into a thing misplaced concreteness. So, he says process, and it's interesting because he uses, like you said, Emily, the analogies of, well, the real experiences of waterfall and of a storm. And these are processes that occur in nature and science. He mentions how science makes these into objects. But what is interesting is that consciousness, is in some regards, right, or well, absolutely is, if we go with his definition, is not made of any kind of processes. In the same sense we would think of a storm or a waterfall. It just, I think, was interesting to to notice that, because he uses those as ways of explaining his definition. But anyway, I think overall, I think he's just teeing things up in this chapter, kind of giving us a little bit of background of the word. And like you mentioned, Emily, I think it's interesting, and I think it's very useful how he used language, and how he explains how language gets in the way of understanding such a complicated problem of consciousness. And it's funny how he says he kind of gets a little bit riled when people talk about the nature of consciousness. And so it seems like he's basically saying that he doesn't want to get into these philosophical discussions about the nature of consciousness. Like he says here, I hope to set the situation right, not by posing another argument about the essential nature of consciousness, its relationship or lack of relationship to the body and the brain, or by claiming it does not exist, or counterwise that it does, or nothing else exists, but by offering a radically new way of understanding it. So it's really about the understanding that he's, I think, talking about. And it'll be interesting in the next few pages, next chapters, how he talks about and how he relates it to Ken Wilber's way thinking, because he does mention that in the introduction. And I know just from hearing a discussion before with Ken Wilber and him, that they do share a lot of common threads in their ideas. And I think, I think most of us will probably know, there's that the Combs Wilber what do you call it, matrix, or basically the levels of consciousness, and the states and stages of consciousness. So anyway, that's basically all I have for today. It's great talking, and I think this is just a great discussion, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, bye.